Since the beginning of computing and then the internet, connection speeds and our desire to improve upon them has been an ongoing narrative. As a kid, I can remember dial up. Sorry about that, but I wanted to remind us what it sounded like. And then, living abroad in Central America in my early 20s, it was a USB like thumb drive that I loaded up like a prepaid phone card, which then allowed me to keep in touch with friends and family. And while the speed wasn't great, it worked. Today, Wi Fi is the way we connect our laptops, smartphones, tablets, and IoT devices to the internet. And on this episode, Roger Williams joins the pod to share how the next iteration of connectivity for homes, corporate offices, and many more shared spaces will be light fidelity, or LiFi, where we use light to transfer data and information. And while LiFi may seem out of this world, I'm sure a young me who only knew dial-up would have thought that Wi-Fi was more science fiction than the future. I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is More Than Blockchain. Roger, welcome to More Than Blockchain. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing phenomenal, and thank you for hopping on at such short notice. I wanted to ask, because I actually have no idea, where are you calling in from?
Houston, Texas.
Oh, okay. Are you guys okay right now with the hurricanes? How's everything going down there?
Man, honestly, brother, this is the first time we've not been hit by the hurricane. So every year we're always looking to get hit, but this year, the blessings, we got the nice heat outside, so I'm excited.
That's excellent. I was actually on a call this afternoon with Grant and Jay from Not Crypto Bros, and Grant is in Florida. And so we spoke to about 1 p.m. and then he's like, I got to cut it because we got to be ready just in case we need to move or do something. They had the sandbags out because he's, down in Florida, down in Lakeland, Florida. So
Right.
it's interesting to see how, the IRL world affects the digital world. But on that might be a good segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is LiFi. And you sent me over some great links. And what I'll do is I will add those in the show notes for everyone to go check out. Roger sent me some links before we hopped on, basically to get me up to speed on what LiFi is. But if you don't mind, why don't you give me a little talk about LiFi and also touch upon how it plays with blockchain and cryptocurrency?
Absolutely. So LiFi is the acronym for LiFi is light fidelity. What is LiFi? LiFi is it's the internet speed of light frequency that is going from one place to another, transferring data. What is LiFi and what does it do? Well, let's start off with Wi-Fi first. Okay, so what is Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi is internet, and where everybody currently has Wi-Fi, but it uses radio frequency. What is radio frequency? Radio frequency is basically it's transmitted and using cables. And when we transfer radio frequency, it's not always one of the most healthiest things to transfer because it's radio frequency, absolutely what it is. LiFi is light, and you're transferring light back and forth. So obviously, at the speed of light, things transition faster, right? So one of the things that in Europe, a lot of people are doing is they're bringing LiFi into schools because of the safety, because of the light, and it's not radio frequency. So a lot of people don't know this, but in Europe, most schools don't have, with kids under 3, don't have Wi-Fi in the schools. And so what they're doing now is they're doing what we're doing in the blockchain phase right now, which is mass adoption of Wi-Fi. And how are they introducing mass adoptions? They're bringing it first into schools where parents can find out that their kids can use it. So it's one, it's safer. 2, it is more secure. And let's talk about security. So right now, if you have Wi-Fi, most people can hack your router and jump into your Wi-Fi and steal all your data. But with LiFi, because it's so secure, it is hard to hack it, because in order to hack it, they have to get inside your house. And so that means they'd have to get in the house and then hack it from that. But with Wi-Fi, I can be outside your house. And there was an actual case in Europe where there were some people, and I think it was in London. There was a family that somebody used their Wi-Fi outside their house and hacked into it and used it to do some major government type things. And that family pretty much was, I think they almost got prosecuted just because somebody used their Wi-Fi to hack into a government entity to obtain information. So blockchain is supposed to be about security. Wi-Fi is supposed to be about security. Your U.S. military right now is currently using LiFi because it's so secure. So the U.S. military, which is the Army and the Navy, they've all, I don't know if you've seen this, but I think it was about August or maybe May, Signify got a $10 million contract. Signify is one of the biggest players in the game in the Li-Fi industry. So you have pure Li-Fi, and then you have Signify, you have Alacom. These are some of the biggest players in the games right now for Li-Fi. Li-Fi is good because it's it's 100 times faster than Wi-Fi. So this is why and I'll show you the connection, how it connects to the blockchain. So it's 100 times faster, which is awesome, right? So, and then let me break it down as this as well. The way Li-Fi is going to work is right now, our Wi-Fi is at a 80% broadband usage. So if we're up to 80% broadband usage, that means the next 20%, when you add things from the Internet of Things onto the Wi-Fi spectrum. But what Wi-Fi is able to do, I mean, Li-Fi is able to do when you're using Li-Fi is, if I'm supposed to get if we got 300 gigabits of Li-Fi that's sent to your house, right? If I'm on my laptop, I'm not sharing that spectrum with anybody else in that house. So now I'm getting a full 300 gigabits and unlimited broadband. Our day-to-day businesses are going to, be able to do things that they've never been able to do before. And one of the holes that gapped us for seeing these holes was the pandemic. The pandemic opened up all the problems that were going on. How many people weren't in rural areas, in not just in the United States, but all around the world, that still don't have connectivity. And if they do, their broadband is not great. So, and then on top of it, like, because Wi-Fi is rolled out using cables, it's more expensive, right? But guess what? Li-Fi, it's light, so you don't need cables to roll it out. So now, and that's one of the biggest parts about when the U.S. military adopted Li-Fi, is because of the fact that they can be in the middle of a desert and they can still receive signals and communicate during war, right? So these are some really cool features of Li-Fi that trumps what Wi-Fi is doing. And it's still in the evolutionary stage. But once people see what Li-Fi is going to do and how it connects to the Internet of Things, blockchain, and smart cities, then you'll get a better understanding of how Li-Fi is going to change the world, and it's going to be the new Wi-Fi.
That is an excellent roundabout of the Internet of Things, Li-Fi compared to Wi-Fi, why the military is into it. Talking about, I'm glad you really touched on security, because that was one of the many things I wanted to ask, because I think that that's a really important part as we move forward into IoT and everything being connected in smart cities, is making sure that our transfer of data, whatever it is secure. Thank you for giving that big background on Li-Fi, and I kind of jumped the gun because I wanted to hear about Li-Fi, but now I want to hear more about your story and how you got into Li-Fi and blockchain and crypto.
I've been in blockchain since 2017, and I'll just give you guys a little history of how I got into blockchain, man. The way I got into it, a friend of mine that played basketball with me in high school and college, he would always call me and tell me about Bitcoin. So I remember he called me and he told me Bitcoin was like $300, and he's like, "You should get some," and I was like, "That's kind of expensive, that's more than some Jordans. Like, why would I get that? Like, because my mindset was like, I didn't understand it." So then he would call me periodically. This was 2016. So in 2000, and then August, he called me. He's like, "Bitcoin is 700." I'm like, "Oh, I'm really not getting it now, 700." But he kept on saying to me, like, "Look, you can buy pieces of it. Just buy it." So I remember I was going through some stuff, and I remember the universe told me, like, "Man, the job that you're with right now, where it's going to be, you're not going to be there And I said, okay, well, all right, so what's going to happen? And so I remember 2017, January 1st, it was New Year's Day and I was on the freeway and he called me and he goes, Bitcoin's $1,200. And I said, my God, what is this? Right. So I never forgot. So I went home, I researched it. And lo and behold, March came. My company, I was working for an energy natural gas company as a SAP consultant. And they was like, your company just got bought and we're going through a merger. And the second day of the merger, they were calling people into the office and they told them, hey, they called me in and said, hey, you're getting let go. And they gave me my severance package and I had my 401k. And I told myself I'm never going back into corporate America again. And so I went to Fry's at the time. It was like electronic stores. And I bought a brand new laptop touchscreen. And I called him and I said, hey, which coins do I buy? And at the time, Gate.io, Coinbase wasn't around. Gate.io wasn't around. We were using like this little Chinese exchange that you couldn't even read in English. And I went and bought a bunch of Bitcoins. And I took my whole severance and I took my 401k and I dumped it into Bitcoin. Bro, 6 months later, Bitcoin was at $20,000. I bought a bunch of Trons at the time. I bought them at 0.006 of a penny and they jumped up to 25 cents. I bought about $70,000 of Trons at the time. So I think my Trons end up hitting like right at $1 million or something like that. And that was my introduction. That was one of the luckiest. I'd say, everybody has their own story, but that was my story. And it was like it was almost like I was in a video game because I never seen money move like that before. And that was how after that I said I need to understand this even more. Like I it was amazing.
I have a similar 2017 story where I put in money and it went up about 17x in about 2 or 3 months. And when you see money do that, once it happens, you can't unsee it. And then everything else that the world tells you about ETFs or investing in other assets, it forever doesn't make sense because it's like you've stepped outside of the matrix and you've seen something different.
Absolutely.
I love that story, and maybe we can dive into those numbers sometime if you ever want to come back, and we'll get deeper into that story because
Definitely.
I think that those are really cool stories because I have friends too that I've been telling since 2017, and only more recently did they hop on. And timing into the market in crypto is a sensitive thing, and when you do that, will really kind of show you your future, whether you know it or not. So, okay, you get in 2017, unbelievable with Bitcoin, unbelievable with Tron. You say, I never want to go back to corporate America. Now you see what blockchain can do. Maybe you got some money that you didn't have before, so now you have a little bit more breathing room.
Right.
What brings you into LiFi now and the IoT out of because you were in natural gas? How do you get there? And talk to me then also about where you are today.
Yeah. So I made a bunch of money. So now, my brother, marijuana is legalized. So he goes up to Portland and he jumps into the marijuana and I'm, his biggest cheerleader. I'm supporting him. So I'm trying to develop, well, I'm not trying to, one of the projects I'm developing on the back end is a fitness platform on the blockchain. And I'll reveal more about that later once we get done. But so I'm developing it, and in the process, I'm meeting developers who I don't really, I'm a functional guy, and so I'm not really a developer. But in the process, these people are scamming me, right? I'm looking at the back, I'm looking at the front end, not realizing they didn't do anything on the back end. It's almost like they just created the shell. So I'm excited about what it looks like, but the functionality of everything's just not working. And I spent a lot of money trying to get it done. So I said, you know what, man? Like, I think it's not right that people in the blockchain or in just who are developing and creating ideas, and you're utilizing people to help you get your ideas out into the universe and change the world. But then they're not doing a great job. So I'm like, you know what? Let me create my own blockchain company because there's a lot of good projects out there that people don't know and don't have the guidance in understanding how to get these projects out. And then you start to see the hype coins. So let's go through the cool parts of blockchain. So when blockchain came out, I mean, and everybody was in the very beginning stage, you had the Tron army. You had the Ethereum army, you had the Bitcoin army, you had all kinds of army. You had the IOTA army, you had what was the Monero, you had
XRP in
X-
2017 was a bumping thing.
XRP
Yeah.
was killing XRP army. You had man, it was so many. What there's you had Litecoin. Everybody was on Litecoin. You had all the people in the game. Roger Ver with Bitcoin Cash. Roger Ver, they call him Bitcoin Jesus. Everybody knew who Roger Ver was. If you know Charlie Shrem, you know all these people. So if you really were in the Bitcoin space, you know you knew about the Silk Road. You know, you knew how you had all these cool people in the space that are still in the space that people don't. Justin Sun, the biggest hype man of them all, but it's crazy when you look at Tron. Tron has an amazing ecosystem, and they've created a bunch of apps and marketplaces. But I guess because they're in China, we don't really utilize them anymore. So you start to see like everybody had access to, buying any kind of token anywhere in the world. But now regulation is in, and they go, huh? Well, Gemini comes in, Coinbase comes in, and they give you in America the tokens that you can only purchase. But and you learn all these things because you study all in order for you to like now people just buy coins off hype, but back then you studied the team behind the actual projects, right? And then you looked at you went to different, coin market cap, you checked out Dex tools, all the different things, and you watched the project and you saw, the true projects and understood who was on the team. Now, then it jumped to the hype coin tokens. And then from there, it jumped to NFTs. So remember, I told y'all that the pandemic gave way because it saw the holes. But what a lot of people don't realize is as well that during the pandemic, they rolled out 5G. So when they rolled out 5G, guess what happened? 5G also gave birth to NFTs, right? Because no 5G, no NFTs,
You think
right?
so? You think so? Because I only say that because CryptoPunks is back in 2017, CryptoKitties is back in 2017, but you're saying maybe I want to challenge it. Maybe not that there's no NFTs. Maybe there's no NFT boom.
No NFT boom. Sorry, absolutely correct. But at the same time, our infrastructure wasn't strong enough for NFTs because the processing speed of and being able to do all the things we're doing in the NFT space wasn't capable. And 5G also that played a big part in them being able to speed up the internet to give you the speed. This is the thing that people also don't understand. We talk about the metaverse, right? But you won't get to the metaverse until you have 6G. So to get us onto 6G, we need a safer, more secure vehicle that can take us there. And LiFi is faster than it, one, like I said, more secure, two, cheaper to roll out all over the world. So now you have people that are still off the grid or not in or don't have access to internet. And that was one of the biggest problems with the school system as well. When you had Zoom going, people playing video games, right? Because they're at home, people working from home, the internet was heavy. At times, Zoom was shutting down because it just couldn't do it. So this is what gave birth to, and LiFi has been around for a while. Professor Harold Haas out of Edinburgh University, he was the one that kind of realized that it was like a two-way data. And that's the other big part. It's good for data, movement of data back and forth. And so a lot of big companies are going to be using it for the data component and security component as well.
If we could, and I think it'd be valuable because I feel like I have information that maybe the audience doesn't have. And that's because I saw one of the videos you sent over and it was showing how you take two cell phones and you put them next to one another. And if you point them in a certain way and allow the light to connect essentially, that you can it was showing the example is I think a 4K video, which is a pretty big data file. You're talking about transferring data. Can you talk just super like explain it to me like I'm 5 because also I'm so new to this. What would LiFi look like in a corporate office environment? Just draw the picture hypothetically.
All right. So in a corporate environment, one, you have different spectrums of lights, right? And so people say, well, if it's light, won't it be interfered with? Well, there's different spectrum of light. So even in a home or in an office, right, you can designate which spectrum you want your guests to use, right? And then if you have a private, if you're a CEO that's doing private, doing a lot of secured information, he will have those people can have their own spectrum as well. So you can separate the spectrums and give your guests a different access. The CEO can have his different access, and people who are in office can have a whole different access as well. So I can spread the spectrum and make sure that those who are using it have the right access, so they don't have access to prevalent or important information. And that's how it'll be used in the office space. It'll be like a LED light bulb, that's up in the ceiling. And that LED light bulb is going to come down and it'll be able to shine over you. And when you stand underneath that LED, that's where it'll transfer the data back and forth between the LED to your computer. And what's going to happen, and what's already currently happening right now in this mass adoption phase, which is so dope, because I call it the Bitcoin of energy right now, is because in this space, chips, devices like phones, interoperable devices. You used that word yesterday, which was so funny because that's what's going on. A lot of the home devices have to be interoperable. Meaning, once the LiFi comes in place and then you have Internet of Things devices, there's going to be a lot of applications that are going to be needed to build to be able to operate. If I'm in the car and I need to turn my AC off, and I know you can do it now, or just a bunch of different things, because it's interoperable and it's LiFi, there's going to be a vast amount of industries that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to take advantage in this space and make lots of money in the LiFi space. And I hope I answered your question. I don't know if I veered off point. Sometimes I veer off, but it's just a lot of information I have in my head.
No, it's all good. I think that's I think your example of how you have the CEO, you have the other office workers, and then you have a guest, and they could all have access to different, essentially, light spectrums. So the
Absolutely.
CEO has an access to spectrum A, regular office B, and the guest C. So that way the guest can't get at the regular office of the CEO, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's just a change in how we do things. Because one of the videos I saw that you shared, and I thought it was so wonderful. And once again, this is an audio podcast. And so I will please check out the notes because I think you have to see how this works. Is like if you and I are in a meeting and we're connecting to this certain Wi-Fi, which is literally just the light, and it's bringing down data into our two terminals. If someone walks by and we're like, oh, you know what? This is classified information for just you and I, we can just close the door. And then at
Absolutely.
that point, they can't get into the data. And this goes back to what I think you were originally saying, which is like you could have a hacker outside who could get into your Wi-Fi network, then do some nefarious activity, and then it will be traced back to your home. Whereas this, as long as, the shades are drawn and the door is closed, then the information of the transfer of data is kind of closed in that system. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Because I'm trying to grasp this. And the other little background is for the last 2 years, I've been working at a telecommunications consultancy out of Washington, D.C., or it's out of Fairfax, Virginia, but their office is close to D.C. due to the government funding that goes into broadband and all these things. And one of the biggest things that they struggle with, that the world struggles with, and the United States, because we're both in the States, I can use this example, is finding how do we solve the last mile? How do we connect millions of people to the internet and to the Internet of Things and just overall connectivity that live in the rural areas? So now that we kind of maybe understand how Li-Fi works, it's just light that's transferring data that's, secure in a secure manner. Can you break me down how that's going to help America and the world connect people that are currently not connected or increase their connectivity?
All right, so I'm gonna ask you a question. What was Web point one? Web 1.0? We're gonna do a little engagement. What was Web 1.0 all about?
So Web 1 was, and I'm just going back to like my mental model, is just like read. So it was a very basic thing where it was a one-way system where the engagers on the internet, like when I went on the internet as a kid, I could only basically read. I couldn't input anything. That's what I would say. Now, I know that there's the difference between the way we're talking about it, and then there's also like what computer people in the back end would say Web 1 might be a little bit different. But for me as a user, Web 1 was essentially going on to Yahoo. It looks super janky. and I read about the Boston Red Sox. That's Web 1. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Okay, so now what was Web 2.0?
So Web 2.0, once again, I'm going to my mental model, which is read. So that was Web 1. Now Web 2 for me is read and write. So now I could have my blog, and then I could write about the Red Sox, and you could read about him in Houston because you're a Houston Astro fan and be like, I hate that dude. I hate that dude in Boston because he's writing on his blog. So now I can also put stuff into it and I can engage. Are we still good?
Absolutely. So what is Web 3.0 supposed to be about now?
So Web 3.0, there's two things. There's two words that come up for me with Web 3.0. They're access and ownership. And depending upon how you look at them, they can kind of be one and the same. So Web 1 was read. Web 2 is read and write. Web 3 is read, write, and own. Where then I own the blog that you're going to read because you're a Houston Astros fan. And when you go onto my blog, in order to read it, you have to do some kind of a micro payment. Or at the end of the day, I would own it. So any clicks that I get on that website would be my kind of IP or intellectual property. And this is what Mirror is doing, actually. They have a blockchain backed, it's the new medium.com, but it's on blockchain. So that's what I would say Web 3.0 is.
Okay, so Web 3.0, you're absolutely right. It's about ownership, but it's also about asset tracking as well, right? So IoT, Internet of Things. What are the things that are you tracking? Your assets, right? What is NFT gives you the ability to do? Tie your assets to an NFT, to a real physical thing. So now I have this NFT. What does this NFT do? I can attach this NFT, which is an autograph. I'm not a Tom Brady fan, so we're going to go with Aaron Rodgers, discount double check Green Bay autograph jersey that I got and I purchased, and he signed it on last Sunday. So the history is there. I have it on that NFT, right? That NFT is associated with that asset. So now, if I decide to sell that asset, that NFT shows the history that I got that jersey from Aaron Rodgers last Sunday, and he signed it. Now, when I sell that, and it's attached to the Internet of Things. So what it's doing is Internet of Things is now tying the Internet of Things to the blockchain. Before, we never could tie assets to the blockchain or anything. And that's why you're right. It's about ownership. It's about trust, supposedly, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be trustless. It's the whole, you don't even need to trust, you just verify. So you're going to sell me this on eBay, and eBay will have NFTs if they don't already. And honestly, I haven't checked, but every 5 minutes there's new NFT news with these big companies. But you're going to sell me this Green Bay Packers jersey, and I'm going to be able to go on the blockchain and see the authentication. And maybe the NFT that's on the blockchain is literally a video of you getting it signed by him. So that way I can be like, wow. And I can even match, because a lot of the official jerseys too, they already have barcodes on them, or they have numbers. So then you can say, jersey 000222522, whatever, was signed, and I can see it, and it's in the video, and it authenticates it. So that way when I buy it off eBay, it actually increases the value, because as you know, if you buy anything that's supposedly authentic, and I'm throwing air quotes, off the internet that has to do with sports memorabilia, there's a high propensity that it's fake. I mean, they have that whole show called Pawn Stars where the guys, they have to bring in a subject matter expert from like the Civil War to be like, yeah, that was Ulysses S. Grant's sword or some stuff. So it is about ownership. So bring ownership, IoT into LiFi, and talk to me about why you're so excited about it.
I'm excited about it because, one, like I said, it's 100 times faster than Wi-Fi, right? So let's think about all the kids and people that didn't have access to internet in rural areas, right? But at the same time, like I said, our internet, our broadband is at a 80% usage, right? So let's jump back into why am I so excited? Well, one, if I'm in gaming, esports on the blockchain, I'm going to definitely need a better bufferless internet, right, to compete. So you got the gaming component, but then also you got the metaverse component, right? In order for the metaverse, you need to get on 6G, and that's what everybody's pushing. If you notice, the whole world is rushing to 6G because of metaverse. You see all the advertising for metaverse. I saw a commercial the other day. It's crazy. I remember J.P. Morgan and Tony Diamond, whatever his name is.
Jamie Dimon from
Diamond
Chase
was like, "Hey, no, I'm not gonna use Bitcoin ever. No." And then now you see them talking about the metaverse and all, but guess what? They're talking about the metaverse, but there is no true metaverse yet because we're not on 6G. And so they knew this. And so the rush for China, the United States, and everybody to get on this 6G, right? LiFi is the biggest component that's going to get us into the metaverse. Now let's talk about trading. You'll be able to trade. A lot of people spend a lot of money and time learning how to trade, and trading is one of the biggest tools that's used in the United States. And if you don't have the most fast, secure internet, one buffer and you miss out on your trade, you lose a lot of money, right? But then guess what LiFi does also? It's eco-friendly. It's green energy because it's light. So if you know that's and guess what? You do blockchain, you do LiFi, you do Internet of Things that creates your smart cities. Is it Saudi Arabia, Dubai that's creating smart cities? That's the ultimate goal for everybody. All those equal smart cities. So you see how intricate that everything it plays a part in that whole ecosystem to get us to the smart cities that they're trying to create.
I want to shift a little bit, but I want to stay with LiFi for a second. But I want to ask about what you're doing now with Wi-Fi. Let's get away from how we solving the world's problems and how, what are you currently doing with LiFi, and talk to us about this project.
And you asked me this earlier, so I'm going to bridge that part in. How did I get into LiFi? So we were developing blockchain products, and one of the clients came up to me and he told me about LiFi. And I'm sure all the stuff that when you kind of jumped into it yesterday, kind of your head just kind of boom blew open. And I saw how we could utilize it on a blockchain because it was kind of his vision. So when I saw it, I said, man, I need to be a part of this as well. Like, there's no way I'm gonna miss this boom. Like, I can't. Like, this is a boom. Like, this is disruptive as ever. So he brought us on, and the name of the project is the Oni Token. And what the Oni Token is going to do is there's a lot of end products that are already been created on the LiFi. So, you got the laptops that are being customized. You got the chips put in laptops for kids. You got LiFi being put in cars. You got LiFi right now is Airbus and Boeing that are putting LiFi in planes. You got LiFi being used in hospitals because it's a lot safer to use in hospitals, like during the operating rooms, than radio frequencies. It's just not a good move. You got the U.S. military using it. So when you see all these things and all these major corporations, you got Apple that's already integrating it into behind the scenes. You got Samsung integrating it behind the scenes. You start to see corporations move that way, you know that the bubble is coming. And so that's what pulled me into LiFi. Like, man, like, okay, this is really happening. Mercedes-Benz, I think they're actually putting in the newer models of Mercedes-Benz to where you sit down, because LiFi is the only thing that's going to bring us autonomous driving. Because the one thing that people don't, the infrastructure is already here. The infrastructure is light. And so the government mandated that every city has changed out all their street lights to LED light bulbs. So the LED and LiFi uses LED light bulb to transfer data back and forth. So what we're doing in the space is you got the end products that are already created, but guess what? Nobody has actually built the infrastructure to use on it to help create mass adoption of residential and corporate businesses to use it. And people say, well, why would I need to use LiFi if I got Wi-Fi? Well, when you got people in the rural area that's going to have 300 gigabytes of speed and it's not going to be interrupted, no buffering, and that's why we're doing it out there in the rural area first. We've already been approached by 5 cities in the United States in the Midwest to go ahead and create the first LiFi smart city in the United States. So our job is we're going to put up the infrastructure and then show proof of work that it does work. In that region, there will probably be anywhere from 30 to 100,000 residents now that will now be on the grid just because of the infrastructure. And then from there, the world will see the first LiFi city. And from there, they'll be able to implement this worldwide. So we're putting in the infrastructure, yes.
Can you share what those 5 cities are? Because I'd be very interested to know if you can share.
We can't share yet because due to the fact that, one, we don't want the interference of other companies coming out. I can share it with you after call, but the first place it will be in one of the city, in the city council building, and a couple of universities and other places in that region that need it. But yeah, so that's actually where we're going to do it in the Midwest first. And then once we go live from there, I can reveal. Once we do that first city, we can tell you the rest of the other 5 cities around the United States. But it's in the Midwest.
Okay, cool. And then what is the name of the company? We basically met each other through Not Crypto Bros when I've been live streaming. You've been hopping off and giving some really great comments and great engagement. But what's the name of the project? And as we kind of come to the end, if you want to shout out what the name of the project is and then shout out where people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about LiFi, that would be great.
Definitely. So the name of the project is called Oni Token. We have a Twitter space. We do Twitter space, and we've got a lot of partnerships on the back end with a lot of the big LiFi companies. So this is not a fly by night. Our goal is to help develop the LiFi ecosystem as well. And some of the companies that we do have partnerships with is one of the biggest ones, which is Signify, Pure LiFi, and Alacom. Those are the biggest ones in the industry right now. We do a lot of podcasts with LiFi CEOs around the world, and it's just amazing to see what they're doing in this space and how we're bridging the gap to connect the world at the speed of light.
So we connected on LinkedIn. Should people reach out to the Oni on Twitter or should they hit you up on LinkedIn? Is there a website? Go ahead and just shout all those out right now as we.
Definitely, man. If you want to learn more, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm Roger Williams, and then say Mobile Blockchain Solutions, because that's what we do first. We develop blockchain solutions. This is, just a blessing to be a part of this. So right now, the Oni website will be up next week. We just had to reconstruct the whole website, and I'm excited about what you guys are getting ready to see. And yeah, you just kind of, if you want to find out any kind of content or just follow the Twitter, you can follow us at Oni Token. And yeah, that's really the 2 places you can kind of follow, or just, like I said, you can hit me up on LinkedIn and just ask me any kind of information, set up a meeting. And I love talking about it because I'm in it. It pulled me in.
Perfect. Well, I will go ahead and add all these links to the show notes. That way people can go find you on LinkedIn, Twitter. And then eventually when you have the website, we'll just update the show notes. That's super simple. So Roger, thank you so much for hopping on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, Jarek, man. I hope you have an amazing day.
Thanks for listening to this episode, and be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about LiFi, the Oni token, and for links to connect with Roger. As always, please follow us on social media at More Than Blockchain, and no matter where you're listening to the podcast, be sure to subscribe. To learn more about crypto, blockchain, and Web3, be sure to check out our updated website at morethanblockchain.xyz. Thanks again for checking out More Than Blockchain, and I'll see you next time.